So let's talk terpenes a little bit. Some people feel like it's a fancy term, and then they start learning. They're like, oh, terpenes are everything I can smell in nature. Like it's pine needles, it's the mangoes I love, it's the smell of you name it, right? Orange blossoms or pears or what have you. But the same goes for cannabis. So the smell of that Afghan Kush that you like so much is not just because of the cannabis, but the terpene profile within the cannabis. So could you talk to us a little bit? I mean, there are a lot more than just pretty smells, though.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, and the thing that's important to realize about the terpene profiles is that that's really what creates cultivars. I mean, along with, of course, the the CBD, THC, all the cannabinoid ratios and minor cannabinoid ratios, but really it's the terpene profiles that in particular create cultivars. The smells, the flavors, and all the names really come from the terpene content. So terpenes are part of a larger group of molecules in nature called terpenoids. Terpenoids are potent and they're very small molecules. The effective dose is very, very small, which is why I tell people do not drink concentrated essential oils. I could go on a long soapbox about that as well, but they're very, very concentrated, potent molecules. They also are very widely distributed within the body. So the concentration within the plants is very small, but it seems really strong. And if you were to distill essential oils from a plant, including from cannabis, to distill the terpenes, it would take a huge amount of plant mass to distill the essential oils, which is why you don't really see it done very often because it's very expensive. I think I don't know how many thousands of pounds of roses are used to distill 1 ounce of rose oil, and it would be very similar with cannabis. So they're potent, they're small, and most cannabis terpenes are of a class called low molecular weight terpenoids, such as monoterpenoids and phenylpropanoids. Again, they're small molecules and they have very diverse actions. As you were saying, Trey, they have a strong taste and odor, and that's due to the volatility of the compounds, meaning because they're so small, they volatilize or become gases very easily. And so this includes volatile oils within, as you said, Trey, all plants. Anytime you smell something, that's a volatile oil, especially within a plant. And the volatile oils is what is distilled to make essential oils, purified essential oils. So volatile oils just means in the plant. Essential oils means they've been distilled out of the plant. Volatile oils across the board are always, and this is important medically, they're always inflammation modulating, antimicrobial, and antispasmodic, meaning they release contractures of muscles, either in the digestive tract to kind of relax things like gas or bloating, or even in the nerve tissue, they'll stop spasms. So again, all volatile oils are inflammation modulating, antimicrobial, and antispasmodic. Again, this is going to come into play as when we get to the qualifying conditions and the terpene profiles that are most appropriate. I think it's worth noting that alpha pinene is the most widely distributed terpene in all of nature. Again, it's going to be inflammation modulating, broad spectrum, antimicrobial. And here's a place where there's actually 60% bioavailability via inhalation. And once it's inhaled, there's rapid distribution, and then it's eliminated also via the lungs as well as the kidneys. And that's important to remember, is that these volatile compounds are processed by the liver and kidneys and go to the nervous system. So there can be toxicity associated depending on the oil. Again, not a problem in a whole plant, but could be a problem if you distill it out and try to take high doses, which I don't recommend ever. But they also are bronchodilating, or alpha pinene is bronchodilating. So that's good when you want more to come in, but that could be bad if you're pairing it with toxic compounds. And then it's also going to be anxiolytic, and it will break through the blood-brain barrier. So that is something that can actually make reduce the dose that you need of a particular cannabis constituent or cannabinoid, because it's going to, essential oils in general, including terpenes, terpenoids, act as drivers into tissues topically, and then breathing it in. It kind of allows for deeper penetration into the cells.
And I know you're very familiar with that because I know you have helped formulate particular, created formulations for cannabis companies to make sure that those herbs are doing their synergistic job to make everything work better. So I know you're very familiar, and people on the call, people watching this might be more familiar with alpha pinene than they think. Because if you've ever gone out to the woods and you get out of the car after a long drive in the mountains and your normal reaction is to take that deep breath and it just feels good. That's alpha pinene, especially if you're around a lot of pine trees where that's very prevalent. And that's also the reason that it's very prevalent in cannabis, as you said. And one of the reasons why cannabis was prescribed back in the day before prohibition to people with asthma, which seems so counterintuitive to ask asthmatics to smoke until you realize that's why, right? Is that the bronchodilation and allow breathing process to happen is pretty amazing.
Yep, absolutely.
Although
Absolutely.
you personally, I know, would never recommend an asthmatic to smoke, right?
Right. So, of course, the answer is always it depends, but pesticides definitely not. And it would depend on their sensitivity, but probably better to vaporize or essential oil distillate or steam inhalations are
Oh,
really great too. Something with like rosemary or thyme when somebody's sick, adding a few drops to boiling water and inhaling with like a towel over their head, just
mm-hmm.
inhaling for a few minutes will open the airways if somebody has a bad cough and will allow them to expel mucus and keep things open. And also, again, antimicrobial effects. So it'll actually kill stuff that's going on in there. So one of the best medicines when somebody does have any sort of respiratory issue is a great use of essential oils, especially those with a high amount of pinene like rosemary, thyme, various mints, etc., or
Mm-hmm.
cedar, all those conifer oils as well.